Hello, everyone. We are starting another climate talks initiative with WCC and ACT to bring you a technical perspective of what is happening in the negotiation. I'm here with Sostina from ACT Alliance Zimbabwe, and we are going to talk about climate finance. Sostina, today we are going to talk about a very difficult subject in this negotiation, that is climate finance. One of the elements that churches are always trying to ensure that the negotiators understand that the climate finance is a question of justice. Why that?
Thank you so much, Walter, for having me. And it's great to be talking to you about the importance of climate finance. When we are in these negotiations, we always talk about climate change. But when we are in our space, we talk of climate justice because it is a justice issue. Science has proven that Africa, or the developing world, especially Africa, we have contributed less than 4% to the global emissions. But we are wasting away more than 8% of our national GDPs annually to respond to climate effects. So that is where the justice issue comes in, that as we are emitting less, we are bearing the brunt of climate change. And why should that be? If you go into the negotiations, you will know that there is the concept of CBDRC, common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capacities, which speaks to this justice issue. It speaks to equity, and it says basically the polluter has to pay. If you are responsible for the mess, then you have to be responsible for cleaning up the mess. And it is really unfortunate that as we are continuing with the negotiations, we are going back on language that really buttresses that principle. So at the end of the day, justice has to prevail. Developing countries need finances to address the climate problem that we are facing today.
There is one element that is very much connected to this step on the negotiation, that is debt justice. No? So,
yes.
And I think also WCC and ACT, we are advocating a lot on debt justice because we are talking about grants, not loans.
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit why this is so important and why grants are so important?
Thank you so much, Walter. And I remember when we were in Addis this year for the AAU Summit, the Africa Union Summit, we were talking about this problem. That when we speak about climate finance and when we say we have hit the $100 billion mark, but when you look at the quality of the finance, it's loans. What is the problem with loans? Loans further in debt already vulnerable communities. So Zimbabwe, we had Cyclone Idai. To respond to the effects of Cyclone Idai, we wanted climate finance. And when it comes as loans, it means that Zimbabwe has to pay back. And we are not just paying back, but we are paying back with interest. So at the end of the day, the developed countries are giving us money, but it is loans that they will take back their money with interest. So we are saying when you give grants, it is money that is used to address problems. It is not paid back and there is no interest. That's why as ACT Alliance and WCC, we are saying we want grants and not loans, because loans further impoverish already vulnerable communities.
Looking at where we are now at the negotiation, how you as an expert see that we moving forward to this justice element related to finance, and how churches can be hopeful in this process?
I wish I could bring hope. But as a faith leader myself, I know that, the Bible says at the end of it all, there will be hope, love, and faith. So we keep the hope until the last day. But talking as a technocrat, I'm really sad to say that we are moving away from progressive language. I sit in the loss and damage room, and there's a big pushback from the EU on language that speaks about scaling up finance for loss and damage. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, what is wrong with scaling up financing for loss and damage? These are people who have already suffered losses and damages, and they need to be cushioned. And a whole block is pushing back on that. They are pushing back on all progressive language that speaks about adequate financing for loss and damage. They are pushing back on language that's speaking about having a target for fundraising for loss and damage financing, which is really unfortunate. But as the church, as I said, we keep that hope alive, and we just pray that parties will find each other again, and we will maintain and defend that strong language on climate financing in all the negotiating tracks and rooms. So let's keep the pressure going. Let's identify entry points in our countries as the church, be it the departments of climate change, be it eminent persons that can push our narrative and our demands for climate financing. And also there is a lot of literature already that has been produced by faith-based organizations. I know Christian Aid, they have a report on loss and damage financing, and we can use that body of literature to back our claims, because people always say that people of faith, you come with our emotions. We want to go with our emotions, we want to go with a word of hope, and we also want to go with scientific literature that shows the need for financing in adaptation and in loss and damage. So let's identify avenues where we can push our advocacy at various points nationally.
Okay, thank you so much, Sostina, to spend this time with us. So we are continue to talk with those experts that help us to understand how can we do our part in this process, and not just here, but also in the churches where we are based in our different contexts.